Hey everybody, I am AR Mar, and what I watched today is Season 1, Episode 2 of Reboot, Racing the Clock. We open with a POV shot and a sea of pop-up ads, forcing the viewpoint character to follow them to a specific location. Remember the old days of the internet, when pop-up ads roamed free? We come upon Enzo and find out that this episode he's opened up a delivery service. Your basic kid sidekick trying to earn a little cash on side and a little respect. You know, prove he's grown up and whatnot. Naturally, he has 0 clients so far, but when Dot asks him about it, Enzo doesn't want to disappoint his big sister, so he pretends he's doing great. So that seems to be another motivator for his character right here, is that he wants to be a big success just like her. Naturally, plot convenience comes a-calling in the best way, as the ever-scheming Megabyte calls to hire Enzo. The virus claims he wants Enzo to do all the deliveries for his organization. And our adorably honest sidekick here is excited at the idea of a big account, but realizes Dot would say no because, well, she hates her guts. Megabyte, with some clever talking, tricks Enzo into saying yes and foists a test delivery on him through a teleporty delivery window that kind of makes me feel like a delivery service would be redundant. Maybe there's a limitation, like they have to accept the transfer or something like that a sprite delivery would bypass. Surprisingly, Enzo isn't the least bit suspicious about why he's told to deliver this surprise to Hexadecimal and not tell her who sent it. We switch over to Bob mending a pesky tear in the basement, as Enzo excitedly runs down into the basement to tell, well, Bob and Dot about his delivery. You know, I finally got a client. He is so excited right here, and it is adorable. I find it a neat idea that, like, they say that this tear was created by a game. And I find it a neat idea that the games destabilize their environment. Even when they win, there's these little tears and whatnot that need to be patched up lest they cause bigger problems in the system. It's kind of like running a drive clean or something like that. You occasionally gotta go through and clean up all these little inconsistencies that are popping up, or else you're going to have issues later. So yeah, it's kind of a cool nod to the whole fact that they are inside a computer. At first, the two adults are really proud of him, but then Enzo lets slip that it's a delivery for Hexadecimal. The look on their faces got a really good laugh out of me. I mean, it's a great use of exaggerated comedy. And that's something that so far, at least 2 episodes in, that this show is great at, and from what I remember, this show in general is really good at. So naturally, the two adults try to interrogate Enzo about the package. And of course, he stays mum about Megabyte's involvement, because he knows he's already deep enough in with Hexadecimal being part of it. And I do love how Bob jokes about it being a bomb, and then when Enzo says, like, oh no, it's a surprise. Both Bob and Dot are just like nodding and is like, yep, it's a bomb. Bob uses glitch to scan it, and all they see is a mask with a clock. So, totally not a bomb, right? There's like a million reasons why a mask might need a clock. I just can't think of any right now. That aside, Dot forbids Enzo from going to Hex's island. At first, he overreacts, accusing her of trying to hold him back from succeeding, but her and Bob make a solid point. The island called Lost Angles is a very dangerous place. And naturally, Enzo's crestfallen and about to quit his business. You know, going, it's like, well, if I can't make this delivery, what's the point? Quit file, I'm done. And Dot just grabs the package and hands it to Bob, declaring, well, then he'll do delivery for you this time. Enzo, you shouldn't quit file so easily. And yeah, it's a good thing to say. I mean, when you start a venture like that, you shouldn't be so quick to quit when one thing goes wrong. And this is when we get our first look at Hexadecimal, intimidating and faceless as she sits upon her throne. I'm not ashamed to say that when I was a kid, Hex scared me. I mean, especially in this scene with her lack of a face. Her main thing is her masks, her mood changing unpredictably depending on which one is currently serving as her face. As we join her here, she's trying to decide what mood she feels like at the moment. And her unpredictability makes her a different kind of threat from Megabyte, or he's cold and calculating and scheming, she's very much this, like, unpredictable anger. She does what she's basically the id in this situation. She does what pleases her, whether that be causing some chaos or just trying on her masks for a bit. Hex's minion arrives at this point, a little cat ball thing called Scuzzy, and through him Hex learns about the mask and what Megabyte made it to do. So now Bob is headed right into a trap that Hex is setting for him. As Bob enters Lost Angles, Enzo appears behind him, and he's basically following Bob, complaining about missing all the cool stuff. Fairly typical example of a kid sidekick not believing the adults when they say something's dangerous, or being like, I can totally handle it, I'm a mature whatever my age is, etc., and not actually, like, I mean, it's good to try and push past your limitations, but there's situations like this where a lot of the problem would be solved by not doing so. Fortunately, Enzo doesn't get into trouble here, but Bob does. As Bob's searching around, Hex pulls him into her lair by opening a hole in the ground and just dropping him in. Down her kind of cool slide. So, well, at least Bob got that right. And she immediately goes, ooh, the package from Megabyte. And I was like, wait, that's from Megabyte? And then Hex just rips it open and forces the mask onto Bob, and then fires him like a cannon back at Megabyte's fortress. Enzo overhears that the bomb's timer should blow Bob up just as he reaches Megabyte's tower. So Enzo freaks out at this point. He rushes back to Dot, and he tackles her down and starts babbling, trying to tell her what's going on. Naturally, she can't understand a word he's saying, so she gets him to slow down and finds out, oh crap, Bob is in trouble. And yeah, Bob, though, of course, manages to get the mask off and stop himself from hitting the tower. And just as Enzo and Dot are about to catch up and warn him about the bomb, a GameCube descends. Naturally, Bob, being Bob, heads straight for the game. And for a second, it looks like Dot and Enzo aren't going to get him to warn him, but Dot pulls a daring move at the end, just barely getting herself and Enzo inside. The game is a formula racer to start, and as Bob reboots, the mask bomb is planted on his car. The user's car appears at this point, a white car with a bunch of decals on it, including a bunch of cars crossed out. It's your basic, I take out other racers, look how dangerous I am kind of car, but it looks awesome. We have Bob in a yellow car and all the generics in green cars. And then, as they take off, despite there being no more start line positions, Enzo and Dot reboot and get their own cars. Dot's is red, and Enzo's is this sort of blue, red, and white to match his color scheme. Together they race off after Bob, after a brief gag where Enzo, accidentally takes off in reverse. Yeah, I know how you feel, buddy. You gotta check where the gears are. Meanwhile, the user's playing dirty. Taking out one sprite car, he nearly knocks Bob off the track, and Bob's forced to the back of the pack. Of course, Bob makes up the ground right away with a nitro, and the user seeing this sets a trap, as both Dot and Enzo activate their nitros, doing their best to catch up. Unfortunately, Dot hits the trap, and boom. Right before she hits the trap, though, she tries to warn Bob, your car is a bomb, and he basically misinterprets that as, yeah, my car's a lemon, it only had one nitro. Which is kind of hilarious, and right after this, they hit level 2, where the Formula 1 cars turn into these cool hovercrafts. And thankfully, though, Enzo catches Dot and hands over driving of his hovercraft to her. So the chase to warn Bob resumes as we see the mask tick down. And I'm wondering what units of time the mask is doing, because it's ticked down a couple times so far in this game, and it doesn't seem to be connected to minutes or seconds. It's plot convenience timing. Like when the bomb says 10 seconds, but everyone seems to have time for a monologue in some movies. That kind of thing. I think TV's a bit more of a perpetrator when it comes to that, but it is a fairly common trope. So anyway, Dot and Enzo are starting to catch up, but as the user hits a straightaway, they release just a ton of mines, and Bob manages to evade them easily. The generic sprites aren't so lucky, and pretty much all of them just explode when they hit that part. Dot and Enzo look like they're about to get through it, and then at the last moment they hit one too, getting thrown free from the wreckage by the explosion. And we lose sight of them at this point for a moment. Bob and the user reach level 3 and their vehicles become jets. In a kind of funny nod to video games, they still have to follow a track complete with obstacles despite being in flying vehicles. Enzo and Dot try one last move to get Bob's attention. They crash a fuel truck on the finish line, and the user and Bob's plane smack into it, causing an explosion. At the same time, the mask goes off, and it's a delete command. It leaves behind this weird glowing sphere, and for a moment it looks like Bob is dead, until he lowers himself down with his glitches little line thing. And of course everyone's happy to see him, but now he realizes the delete bomb has caused corruption in the game's code, and it's sucking everything in around it. And so as our heroes run for their lives and try to save who they can, the game just starts crunching together, everything smashing and tearing apart. And then the GameCube itself starts imploding, folding into itself until it becomes a ring, then a sphere, then nothing, leaving our heroes thankfully alive on the ground in its wake. So, close call there. At least the game didn't count itself as lost or anything. Enzo, at this point he confesses his lie to Bob too, and he learns his lesson, because even shows as good as this are still quite often caught up in the "you have to learn a lesson" trope. And he's basically saying, it's like, I should have copied and pasted the truth from the start. I'm so sorry. Yeah, good idea, Enzo. Also a good idea, not working for the known villain. I'm so glad that as far as I remember it, Enzo gets smarter as the series goes on. But yeah, I still love this show very much. It is a great watch. The action is always exciting. And the animation, like I said, is amazing. It still holds up today. If you haven't watched the series yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.